What if giving away more business actually led to more growth? What if the way to build $1 million practice, a $3 million practice, or a $5 million practice wasn't by clinging tighter, but by letting go? Today's guest is Nathan Bennett, managing partner at Summit Financial Group. He's built one of the most thoughtful growth platforms in the country, a firm where advisors get the support, structure, and scale that they need to serve better, grow faster, and still own their own equity. This episode isn't theories, it's about infrastructure and building the right thing in the right way. So if you're debating a breakaway, looking for leverage, or building your team, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to Advisors Off Script, Stories from the Independent Front Lines. I'm your host, Shelby Nicholl. Nathan, welcome to Advisors Off Script. I'm so glad we're finally making this conversation happen. I want to kind of start at the beginning for you. When you think about being an elite wealth advisor today, what does that mean to you? What's your North Star?
Ooh, big question to start out with. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to doing this with you. Oh, the North Star. I think it all comes down to wisdom and serving the client well. In our world today where technology and AI are just going to enable all the knowledge in the world to be at everyone's fingertips, I'm not sure that it can handle the knowledge part. And so how deep can you get with people? How across the entirety of their life and their family can you advise them? And can you really get to what matters most to them and then advise them across all of that? I think that's the North Star where financial advice is going. As far as our history and my history, I've not been in any other profession since I left college. I lost my parents at a young age and really felt like if I could do something that helped people understand their financial situation, that I'd be doing the world a service. And so once I found out that I wasn't gonna be able to play sports after college, I went and decided on this career and started building a financial services career. And in about 2006, myself and a couple other people set up Summit Financial Group, which is where we operate out of today. So we're just about to come up on our 20th anniversary. And we have this belief that if you do it right and serve people well, you won't worry about where the business will come from. And thankfully, that's been true for us. And we're approaching 30 million in annual revenue and a little over 4 billion in assets at this point. So we're doing something correctly. And we're really grateful for all the teammates along the way that have helped us help a whole bunch of people and make their lives better.
I mean, it's really tremendous what you guys have built. I mean, 20 years of doing it, 20 years as your own independent sort of practice. And you guys are affiliated with Raymond James. You know, one of the things that we've talked about before is that sometimes advisors can sort of chase independence and that they maybe even chase it a little bit too soon before they might be fully ready for it. And I think a lot about the difference between being fully independent, whatever that means to you, versus like owning your practice, and that you don't have to be alone to own your practice. Can you kind of talk about your thoughts on those topics? Like, are people making the leap to sort of solo too soon? What does that look like in your mind?
Yeah, I suppose everyone has to make their own decision. I do see a lot of people on the quest for independence that maybe our industry did that for them. I don't think our industry has been particularly great at how we've treated young advisors or brought them into the business. And so a lot of people, whether they're at an RIA where they're in some lesser roles, or they're at an independent or at a broker dealer or a wirehouse where they were sort of dictated how they would be, they sort of felt like they needed to get their freedom. And I'm seeing a lot of people when we'll meet them about where their next home should be, thinking that because of what they experienced, that they need to set up their own shop and do everything themselves. And they might be doing that at just a couple $100,000 of revenue. And I don't know how to build anything like what I think the world's going to need you to build, what clients will need you to build without a little bit more scale to it. And so what we've done at Summit is sort of put ourselves in the middle. We said, I don't think you have to be out there on an island where you get a huge payout and have to worry about everything from space to computer systems to software and people. And you certainly don't want to be inside somewhere where you're told how you're going to be and your ceiling is capped for you. And so we said, hey, you know what if we did it different? What if we built a place advisors didn't want to leave? They still had ownership in their practice and they had a place where they could sell that practice when they retire. And we'd hopefully invest in all the infrastructure and all the scale that they would need to be able to execute at a high level and build a much bigger practice than they would have been able to on their own. So that's the niche we've carved out at Summit and where we operate. I think it's served us well. There are lots of people doing wonderfully in this industry. It's a robust industry with lots of client need out there. So there's a lot of ways to get to the top of the mountain. But I do see some people on the belief that they need to be independent, giving themselves just a whole world of headaches at a size where they really can't afford some of what they might need to be an elite advisor.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like sometimes they're going to independent of solo land, right? And sort of that ownership of the full practice and every decision that comes with it. They're going there because they got hurt somewhere along the way, right? They didn't have a boss or they didn't have the right environment. So rather than looking for the right thing, they're like, I just need to go and create this thing because that's going to mean I can't be hurt in that way again, right? There's some of it that's emotion and some of it is others want to build a behemoth, right? They want to build their own enterprise, and that's probably the better reason to do it, right? If you're doing it out of a hurt standpoint, may not be the right answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, America was built on entrepreneurship. So someone who has a dream about building an organization, I'd never get in the way of that. I do think our industry has hurt a whole bunch of folks though. And I've seen it in conversations talking with other practitioners where the main goal was just to how do I build a large enough practice? How do I pay the least amount to those that help me operate that practice so I can sell it to a third party and cash in my equity? Equity has really become a big term in our industry now, and there's a lot of independents who are kind of solely focused on that. And I think there are some really quality people, quality advisors, who get sort of stuck underneath that. They really can't find their way to equity, and so they think the only way to do that is to go build it for themselves. So I'm a little bummed about that for our industry. I think there's a better way. We sort of left the world of growing people from how do you learn how to be a good advisor? Can you grow up into a firm where you have a future? And so that's what we're trying to do. But I understand the emotion around it because there's definitely some folks who feel like maybe it has been built a little bit on their backs and they in order to get what they can, they need to go build it from scratch themselves.
Yeah, I definitely see some of that too, and to the point of being hurt. Sometimes I see it in like the payout structure, particularly for an employee inside of an RIA. And I don't like to necessarily bash that, right? Some of us just want to work for others and be an employee and be a great advisor. That's a perfect place for you. But if you do change your mind and you suddenly have a little bit more entrepreneurship, ambition, you can find yourself often like caught in this world where your payouts can be pretty low, your economic upside is very capped, and at the same time you're faced with a decision to go out and start it from scratch on your own, or at least that's how it feels.
Yeah. And then it feels a little bit scary, right? And I think
Yeah,
the model there is how do you pay them just enough so they don't make the jump? And on our side, we're like, how can we empower them to go as far as they can go and try to build the infrastructure around them so that they can focus on the things that they do well. Your time is your most important commodity. I think we'll talk about abundance, which is one of my favorite topics here in a minute. But the one thing you can't create more of is time. And so, how can you allocate that resource, which is scarce, to the things that are highest and best use for you? And you see it with some of the RAs now that are gobbling each other up for scale purposes. Those that went independent made it work and are realizing they need some of those things. They're all merging together to create that. So we're just coming at it from a different way. We're all trying to serve clients really well. We should never lose sight of the fact that if we're not serving the clients well, we don't have a job. So they always have to be
that's right.
first.
Yeah, that's right. And I love it that you kind of introed the topic of abundance. That was such a theme in our prep as we talked about this podcast and this conversation. And one of the things we talked about is that it's not abundance in sort of like this woo-woo sense of like the spirit of abundance, but it's in a really practical, scale-driven sense. Personally, I subscribe to both the practical and the woo-woo. I think you're more on the practical side. But tell us about abundance and sort of the abundance mindset philosophy inside of Summit.
Sure. Well, I've never stopped anybody from however they want to do it, experience abundance. But for us, it's really the belief that there is just so much more opportunity out there than we're ever going to have time or capacity to serve. And I think our industry, maybe people in general, but we're sort of wired for scarcity, right? We're wired to take care of ourselves, take care of those we love. And it's pretty easy to fall into the trap of if somebody got this piece, then there's one less piece for someone else. And thankfully, in the world of financial advice, there are so many people who are building wealth and need help with their happily ever after, whatever that looks like, whether it's financial independence or business succession and estate planning and all the things that go into the dynamic of someone's money and their life. That I just view it as there are just not close to enough competent professionals to serve them. And so, therefore, just massive amounts of abundance. To the point earlier that you can't create is an abundance of time. So if you want to be a really effective financial advisor, you want to serve at a really high level and you want to have impactful relationships with people, you're going to need to focus on them, and they're going to need to feel that, right? And I think the magic trick a little bit of the industry, if you're trying to build a sizable practice, is every client needs to feel like they're the only one. Every advisor needs to have enough systems so that they can survive and serve well. If you're thinking that way, it's pretty easy to get into a scarcity mindset of, I need to really look out for myself. I need to make sure that I'm thinking about my next move. An abundance mindset is like, there's so much opportunity out there. I'm only going to work with those who fit well. If it's okay, if it's not a great fit, if it's not a great fit for me, maybe it's a great fit for someone else. And so we've built Summit Financial Group on this concept of, let's work with the clients who are exactly the right fit. And if they're not, or there's someone else on the team that could serve them better, let's give it away. And I say give specifically because I think a lot of people in the industry with that scarcity mindset attach a value to every single client or prospective client relationship. And so they either want to sell those or get something in return for them. And we've done it at our firm. If somebody has an opportunity that comes to them and they really don't have the capacity to serve it at the level they want, we encourage them to give that to another advisor in the office. We do an internal split on the compensation of that client, but there's no connection after that. So any referrals that come from that, anything that gets built out of that relationship, regardless of size, is 100% to that next person that we gave it to. And when people hear that, especially people who have grown up maybe in a wirehouse community or in a place where you kind of eat what you kill, it sounds counterintuitive. And they're like, I can't believe you're giving business away. And what we have found is that every time someone does that, their own productivity and production has skyrocketed because they're filling their time with people who are exactly right for what they're trying to do. And they tend to be larger and more profitable relationships. And so it's not charity. That's not woo woo. But it has really built some terrific people. It's helped our younger advisors as they've joined our firm grow much faster. And we have several advisors that are about a decade into their career that are in multi-million dollars of revenue that started from effectively zero. And they're all really, really talented in their own right. They would have done that on their own somewhere. I think we were able to do it faster here. And the not so secret is that senior folks who helped that grew faster themselves because they filled their time with exactly the right clients. So we built some highly productive practices. This abundance mindset. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. One of my words of the year or whatever for last year was momentum. And I think what you're almost describing a little bit is it's like enabling that younger advisor that, kind of new to the team advisor to get some early momentum. But it's also creating a new level of momentum that is creating that hockey stick up for the client, for the advisor who gave the client away as well.
Yeah, and I know there's some consultants out there that will say, "Oh, send them a letter and let them go to a Schwab or Fidelity or someplace. They're just not really the right fit for you." And we just, as a culture, we just never felt like that fit us, right? Those people committed to us, wanted us to help them, and kind of our responsibility is to make sure there's always someone who can. It sort of helped how we build our firm. When we started it 20 years ago, it wasn't like we want to be large. In fact, we didn't have any desires to take over the world or anything. We just thought we're going to do really good work for people. But a couple things happened. One is if you're going to be built by referral, you didn't want to tell someone no because they're all connected together. And two, you want to work with really great people. And if you want to work with really great people, it's hard to bring them on and say, hey, congratulations, here's your cube and here's your laptop. And this will be all you do for the rest of your career. Please expect a 3% cost of living. It'll be great. I don't think that's how anyone wants to be recruited into a firm. And so once we realized that we wanted to work with great people wanted to grow as well. That gave us kind of the impetus to say, well, we're going to be a growing firm because growing firm provides pathways. Great people can advance. They can do other things. And you get to serve at a high level and you get to have more impact on more clients at the same time. So it was sort of organic. We didn't go into it with, we want to be really large, but I think that abundance mindset sort of informed the whole thing. And it's been a really fun journey.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I hear in that is you felt an obligation to the client who chose you initially, even if the business grows and expands, and now maybe they're not your ideal client, or whatever measure they aren't as aligned with you as they were with you when it was 5 years ago, and you were a different advisor at that time. But you still have an obligation to them, and you wanted to serve them well. And the other thing I heard from there is you didn't want to say no either. You want, which is something I say in my business all the time. I have to scale my business. I have to hire and bring on people because I like to say yes. I want to have the impact of helping more and more people. And to do that, you have to scale up. And that sounds you sound similar in that.
Yeah, it's not everybody, right? We do have some barriers to entry. We charge a certain level for financial plans. We have a fee schedule. certain level of client probably doesn't feel like we're a great fit regardless. And that's okay. But for those that do, and just because the advisor's practice grew to a higher level, it just doesn't feel right to say that we as an organization can't serve them the same way and with the same level of care. And we don't really build a tier into the, if you're on the bus, you're on the bus, and we want to take care of you. We have a do it right mantra is one of our three pillars of the kind of people that we want in our organization. And part of doing it right is doesn't matter how big they are, if they committed to us and they're paying us what we ask for our services, that we give them our very best.
I love that. What are the other two pillars?
Yeah, when we talk about people joining Summit, we want three things. We need people who are hungry, they need to care about people, and then they got to do it right. So we almost think of them as behaviors. Our purpose is enriching lives. And when we think of enriching lives, we mean obviously the clients. We deal in the financial realm, so that obviously has a little bit of a double meaning there. We certainly mean of our employees, the people that work with us. It's still fun to come to work every day and not feel like you're making a difference in their lives. And then in the community as well. So those are the three sort of things that go with our purpose. But the three things that are the behaviors that feed that purpose are those hungry, care about people, and do it right. Hungry because we want to be around people that are achievers. I don't know about you, but it's not really fun to be around folks who are trying to mail it in or in a contest to see how little work they can do. We're all about efficiency. We're all about process. We want our people to live great, balanced lives, but we are achievers too. And we want to be around people that are like that. The care about people part matters a great deal because if you're all hunger and you don't care about people, you're kind of a jerk. And
Right.
perhaps our
Right.
industry has gotten a reputation of having a couple of jerks in it, and we don't want any of those either. So caring about people, if you don't care about the clients, if you don't care about each other, if you're not there for that, it's probably not a great fit. And then do it right is all the effort stuff, do your homework, learn the stuff. You're not just selling to get the deal or to win the client relationship. You're there to serve them, guide them, and coach them the best way you can as if they were your family. And so that could mean everything from our newest employee who's learning our processes and not shorting that to a senior advisor who's digging into a really complicated situation and reaching out to estate planning resources to make sure they understand a particular trust. Um, Make sure you do it right. It's important to us.
Yeah, I really love that. I mean, I think that the depth of care that you're saying there is really important, right? And I'm sure it comes from, the early event. And I'm so sorry for your loss at a young age of your parents. Like that, obviously that impacts everything that you do from then on. And so feels like you just want every person to be well cared for and to have the best advice that they can have on estate and tax and wealth so that their heirs and their people are cared for too.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a desire to do that for those who want us to, right? We're not a perfect fit for everyone, but for those who commit to us, we want to be all in and make sure that we're doing the very best we can for them.
Mhm.
I don't think about that event a whole lot now. It's been a long time in the past. I've had so many blessings. I certainly don't want people feeling sorry for me about it. But I think anytime you have a dramatic event like that where you understand how important finances would have been had they been a bit different, it makes you have a passion for it or a belief in it. So when you're talking to somebody, you certainly don't have to try very hard to help them understand why you think it's important. And that resonates. And people, I think they know that you care more than they know what you know, which is probably a good thing because in today's world, everybody can know everything. I mean, there's several chatbots out there that can help you answer just about any question. But the wisdom to know which question to ask and how it fits in your situation is a little bit different. And thankfully, I think it will always be a relationship business. People will always crave that level of coaching and advice, and that's what we're trying to be there for.
When I think about that level of coaching and advice, you've often described Summit as sort of like a family office light, deeply involved planning. You didn't really want that ultra high net worth barrier to those kind of deep services. How do you create the infrastructures and maybe the training and development so that an advisor can grow in their career and do that best work?
That's a really great question. I always get nervous talking about the level of services because there's so many great firms out there doing different things. I don't know if family office light is exactly right, but we are getting deep on everything. For example, with a client going through a mortgage situation and you're jumping on the phone with the mortgage broker. We don't sell mortgages. But you want to make sure that they're getting the right thing for their situation or spending time with their tax accountant and really making sure that the work you did is getting integrated in the quarterly tax estimates, et cetera. So that when you think about it in that regard, it's truly comprehensive. It's not just asset management. When you think about what you need to do to have that available, oftentimes if you go out on your own, you've got to build it from scratch. And so you're renting it from either a broker dealer or an RAA. You're leveraging your internal resources in the community, et cetera. What scale can bring you is some of those resources in house, right? So we have a full blown planning team. We can have behind them the resources of the high net worth team at Raymond James. We can have a marketing department if you want to put on an event that you can go and do that, and they will help you make that happen. It's really hard to do that when you're starting out. And so the ability to utilize some of those, and we make all of that available to all of our advisors, regardless of size or regardless of tenure. And it's a huge head start. It is a huge lift in the early days of being able to go quickly and focus on the things that are most productive because those resources exist. We believed in that forever, and try to fill it with the best humans that we can. Because once again, who doesn't want to work with great people?
That's right. And beyond that platform or those things that you've built and thinking about humans, the other place that humans come in a lot is with marketing and marketing strategy and the events, that kind of like face-to-face interaction. How are you supporting advisors, and how, again, kind of how do you feel like your scale is impacting the ability for advisors to grow through events and other capabilities like that?
Yeah, I think some of it's a mindset, right? Of just saying,
Yeah.
hey, we believe in this, and anything you can do to build relationships is something we encourage. So we create these pools of capital for our advisors each year. They're kind of a use it or lose it. They're not compensation, but they're there for them to do events and things with their clients that can build a deeper connection. We do some stuff on a larger scale too. We have this thing called the Summit Symposium. It's actually about a month from now, and we have this theme of educate, entertain, and inspire. We bring paid speakers from the outside. It's a Saturday, kind of mid morning to early afternoon. These kind of speakers might demand 15, 20, even $50,000 for a speech. And because of the scale of an organization, we can bring that kind of talent to a room. Clients leave feeling empowered, lifted up. They really feel like they're part of something larger. And you get this great feel good moment of bringing this important stuff to the people you care about most. And that's really hard to do when you're starting out if you're in a completely independent scenario. So being able to leverage some of that as we've grown, we've been able to level that up. Our first symposium wasn't as impressive as our last one would be, and we continue to try to make it better every year. So I think those are things that a firm can really lean into. And as an advisor is building their practice, they can leverage off of that. Whereas if you were doing it on your own, that'd be really hard to do. Just the cost alone would be difficult.
Yeah, it would be. I heard about some events similar to that. Even like Peter Maluk with creative planning, they do a big event in sort of the Kansas City area because that's where they started from. And I've heard other Kansas City reps be like, "Oh, I just can't compete with that." But to your point, when you've pulled, even to 4 billion, you can compete with that. You can bring the resources of the group together.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not even sure if we're competing with them.
Right, right.
Obviously, Creative Planning's built a great organization, but for the few hundred clients that will come every year, they certainly feel like it was pretty impressive for them, right? And so I think you can meet them wherever you are, regardless of your size or what you're building. You start small and do something that's impactful. It will resonate. And we're in our 13th year now of the Summit Symposium, and there are clients
Yeah,
who kind of set their watch to it. They won't miss it. They're like, we already reserved last Saturday in February. We're going to be there. And so it's fun to
I
build
love
those
that.
things and get some momentum.
Yeah. But even then, you just said something that was really important, which was, I don't even know if I'm competing with them, right? So you don't really view other financial advisors as your competition. It's just that you're trying to serve the right people in the right way, and if they're your people, they're your people. And if they're somebody else's person, they're somebody else's person.
Yeah, I think in the grand scheme of business, I suppose they're worthy competitors. But I think the abundance mindset is just so much for everybody. There's way more people that need help than there are good people to help them. I think there are great advisors under every flag. There are probably some advisors there that maybe aren't doing it at the level that we would expect. And so if we could just work on what we can control and help those that want to be helped with our model, I think we're doing it well. We're certainly going to do the best that we can to grow that footprint and impact more people. But that doesn't mean there's not room for others as well. It's thankfully not a zero sum game in our industry, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, definitely. And what I hear in that is really a lack of sort of ego about it too. It's just like, let me just keep on doing what I need to do and helping my advisors in the right way, and we're going to win where we win, and if somebody's a better fit somewhere else, that's great. One of the things I want to go back to, that abundance mindset, and even the
Sure.
conversation that you might have with advisors inside of Summit who are going to sort of give those clients to another advisor. How do you help those advisors who are in the position of being at capacity and still wanting to grow? And so they're going to give some away. How do you help them identify which clients are the right ones to sort of graduate, if you will, to that other advisor?
Oh, that's a great question. First of all, it's something you have to be really careful with because I think
Yeah.
if it feels forced, I think an advisor would feel like you're pushing them to give something away, and scarcity mindset can creep in, right? So it's got to be their choice. Usually, it's our people coming to us and saying, "Hey, I'm feeling overloaded. I just don't have enough time." And regardless of where they are, but I don't want to stop. I'm still hungry. I want to build something more. And so I think it's not necessarily a size thing, although naturally you're going to keep the sort of largest and most profitable clients in your book. I do think it's that client where hopefully you don't have any clients where when they call, you're just like, no, I don't want to talk to them. I'd encourage any advisor anywhere to just not take that client on. But sometimes there's clients who will call and you just can't fit it in. And it all of a sudden it creates anxiety and stress for you because you're taking the call at 8 o'clock on a Friday because you couldn't get to it because of the other meetings. I think if we're being honest with ourselves, we should ask, are we really serving them at the level that we would love to, if that's the way we have to get back to them? And I think it's a common belief for advisors to think, my clients really need me. I am particularly great at this. My relationship with them is terrific, and it just won't be the same if it's anyone but me. If you've ever experienced an advisor leave an organization and then their clients stay behind, you realize that that's probably not quite as true as maybe our egos want it to believe. I think we should work really hard at making it so that they never want to work with anyone besides you. But I think if you built a great organization with great people in it, they actually will be kind of grateful that they've got the ear of somebody perhaps a little quicker than you can get back to them. So if we can get over the ego bit about the only person that will serve them well is us, and then be able to say, hey, you know what? I'm not able to call them back till 8 o'clock at night on a Friday, but this person that over here is be able to put them right into their normal client rhythm, and it's going to be a much better fit. I think we can do that in a way where the client feels every bit as served. And because we're doing it under the same umbrella, and this is an important part about Summit, the clients don't feel like they've been moved. It's just part of our team, as opposed to having to send a letter that you're sending it to someone down the street. So if we do this well, it just feels like it's part of our organization as opposed to being pushed aside.
Yeah, I think that's a really important differentiator because, I see a lot of practices that maybe will sell some portion of their book of business to the mothership, right? Whether that's whatever the firm is. And that's got to feel a little bit funny to the end client, right?
It says
And
service
so
center on your statement. It doesn't have the same warm and pleasant feeling.
it just doesn't. It doesn't. And so, yeah, yeah, we all have a little bit of ego, right? And I, as a client, would have a little ego that I was just displaced to the service center. So I love
For
this
sure.
approach of being able to do it internally. And again, it's a choice that advisors have to make, right? You're either going to grow your team and your capacity by growing the advisors that are part of your organization so that you can take them on, or you're not, but you're going to have some of those feelings for the client.
I will just make this one point because obviously we've seen the senior advisors grow when they did it, but we also build the compensation around it as well. So our senior people above a certain level of productivity, we share half the profits of the firm every year with them. And so if you're helping other advisors grow faster, that's leading to more firm profitability, which is coming back to you as one of those really drivers of the business. So we've tried to build the incentives so that it's a win-win financially as well, which at times can get in the way. Let's just be honest. If people felt like they were hurting themselves economically, they wouldn't want to do it. So we tried to make sure, that while we think it's the right thing to do, we've always seen the productivity increase to try to reward it on the back end as well.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think that kind of takes me into the other conversation that I want to go to, which was a little bit of ego and a little bit of equity. And you hit it at the top of the hour, which was that we hear a lot of advisors all about like, how do I build equity in my practice today? I think there's a difference and obviously a balance between owning a practice and plugging into a platform that works. Tell us how you've kind of structured Summit so that advisors don't have to make the trade-off between being part of something larger or owning their business.
Yeah, and maybe we're crazy for putting ourselves in that middle spot because I think there's a lot of folks that are on the one end, building out an RA and sort of staffing with as many folks on the W2 side with limited upside as possible, and then those who are going out and being that owner leader themselves and trying to get the most revenue out of it or the biggest multiple. We just felt like scale mattered and the team mattered. So we needed to have that, which meant we needed to have an organization that was healthy enough. So that means you weren't just using it like a money tree and pulling out all the dollars. But at the same time, people will care a lot more if it's their business. We think they'll do it right in a way that is next level if they're part of it and they own it the way that they do. And so as a result, our valuations for individual practices might be slightly below what an independent person would get out in the world if they were selling to private equity, for example. But we've also offered opportunity and equity in the firm if we're wrong about that. So if there is more value in what we're creating than what we anticipated, we're not taking that away from anybody. So we're trying to have every door open to them, even though the way we're building the firm is so that we can continue it ourselves without necessarily selling out to a third party. It's so hard to know, decades in the future, what will be the right fit for an organization that, is currently 45 people and might be significantly larger in the future. But we certainly want an opportunity for it to be self-sustaining. We want our people to feel like they had ownership in their practice the whole time with a ready buyer to take it when they retire. And also the upside that if there was something greater that was being synergistically created, they'd have a piece of that as well.
I love that approach and love the sharing in that. And are you doing that like through a true kind of like equity swap sort of an approach, or how is the sort of structure of that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, to keep it a little bit simpler, we have equity
Yeah.
appreciation rights, sort of work as deferred compensation, but they're tied to the value of the enterprise. And then everyone has their own equity value, true equity value on a capital basis in their practice. So that's how we jump those two pieces.
Yeah, that's great. And then tell us again about, somebody who really thrives at Summit versus somebody who just gets by. Do you have any get by people? Because you're pretty good about screening those out, I know, early on.
We work hard at not having folks that just get by. Obviously, we go straight to those pillars, right? Hungry, care about people, do it right. Those can't be taught. We can teach other things. I think someone who really thrives at Summit is it's got an achievement mindset. They've got some grit and they want to go do that. They appreciate that the resources and sort of the time that is created by the resources around them allows them to focus on what they do well. I think someone who would not do well is someone who heard about this abundance mindset and go, all I have to do is get into Summit and then people are just going to give me leads. That would not be the case, right? People are building their own practices using the tools that we have. And there are some of those that happen as well, but they sort of supercharge the growth. They're not the marketing strategy in and of itself. And then those people who just care about those around them, want to serve at a high level. And we just sort of iron sharpens iron. You're around a bunch of people who care about doing it right and are achieving at a pretty high level. And so you tend to act like those who are around you and mimic those who are around you. It's become a really fun thing to sort of see if we can level up every time we bring someone in the organization.
Oh, that's great. I really appreciate this idea of achievement and leveling up. It really speaks to my heart, I'll tell you, along with the woo woo of abundance. That is definitely how I personally am wired. So I really appreciate it.
Pet peeve is that our industry is kind of let the world think that this is what you go do so that you work very little and make a whole lot. And
Yeah.
and I guess that's possible once you've built a sizable practice, but we're much more of like how could we achieve? How could we have bigger impact? How could we make a difference? In our community and the lives of our people. And so that means that's not going to be the folks who are trying to do the least amount possible.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yours is a very service mindset too, right? It's an overall, how am I going to serve people well, and just do great work and work with people we like at the same time. Right. But let's go out and win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we're coming here to the end. One of the things I always do is kind of end with a few quick hit questions. So first thing that comes to mind, what is a mindset shift that really changed everything for you?
Give it a way to grow. Realizing that, hey, the time is the one thing you can't get back. Empowering others actually helps you grow faster. That was a huge win many years ago for me. I did it first on my own practice team where I brought someone in at a split of revenue. Maybe wasn't going to be a marketing person, but truly had all the other attributes of a lead advisor and just was like, I think it's going to be better together for us to go do this. And I think there were more than one person who would have questioned that decision at the time, saying, are you going to give away that much of your future productivity? And it's been the best decision ever. Kind of morph that forward to not only on that individual team, which was my practice, but then being able to give away clients or prospective clients who maybe weren't the perfect fit and we didn't have the capacity for, which then kind of bled its way into the rest of Summit as an organization growing. So give it a way to grow is counterintuitive, but it was a big mindset shift for me.
Yeah, yeah, very good. What's a book or an idea that you always come back to?
Oh man, I have so many favorite books. I think folks in the office, I drive them crazy because I'm always giving them book recommendations or check this book out. I'll pick one that I think is appropriate to our industry and maybe just to business in general. There's a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth, where it talks a lot about maybe the differentiator in life isn't education, it isn't wealth status, your head start, et cetera. It's just your ability to pick yourself up and keep going. That refuse to quit attitude. If you're serious about something, you're going to go do it. So I think that is probably the one trait for any entrepreneur anywhere, but certainly a financial advisor that you need to have. And I would probably come back to that as a sort of a first principle. There's another book I love, sort of thinking about businesses and building business, called Small Giants, every business book that you read in college was all about how to scale up, go public, and sell for every $1 billion. And Small Giants was written about firms that choose to just be really great, but don't necessarily get tremendously huge. They might be sizable, they're not small, but it wasn't all about quote unquote going public. And we're here in Silicon Valley, where that is the globe. A lot of them are get acquired by a big public company. And I'm always fascinated by the privately owned firm that does amazing work, serves their employees and their community really well, and is quite profitable along the way. So those are two that are totally different areas of the world, but they both mean something to me.
Yeah, I can't wait to go read that Small Giants. That's awesome. All
That's
right. And
cool.
then what's one way that you're living an off script life today, since that's the name of the podcast?
Yeah, I think it's kind of embracing the power of and, as opposed to feeling like it's an or decision. I haven't missed my daughter plays college volleyball on the East Coast. I go to almost all of her games. My son has played sports. I coached my kids all throughout their career. I built a practice that's sizable by most standards, and a firm that is doing well because of great people in it. And I think that we sort of have this, well, if you want to do that, you got to sacrifice the home front, or if you want to have balance, then you're going to sacrifice there. And I think by giving it away, by leveraging, other people and bringing them along for the ride, you actually can do both. And so I hope that people can take away that you can have the life you want to have. You can have a balanced life and spend a lot of time with the people you care about, and still work plenty hard and have a real impact on your clients, your people, and your community. And so I think that's a little bit off script, because a lot of the advice is, oh, I'm going to go for life balance, or I'm going to go, um, you know, burn the boats and make it all about work, and everything else takes a back seat. So I think you can do both.
I love that. I love an and I don't like to be told no. So I love an and, because I'm like, there has got to be a way to make this thing happen. So,
It
Nathan,
out.
thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks for your time. It's been great. Really appreciate it, Shelby.
Thank you so much. You have helped us challenge the old playbook. You're building a firm that is really around sort of generosity and abundance and the results and achievement. It's just really fun. So, congratulations to that. To our listeners, if you're tired of clinging to every client, if you're wondering about if going alone is the only way forward, I think Nathan just gave us an opportunity to rethink those rules. So this is Advisors Off Script, where we help you build boldly, lead with purpose, and go forward in ways that actually feel like you. So subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with somebody else who is ready to scale, maybe with that abundance mindset. We'll see you next time.